Bro, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. I know that there have been times where I have been kind of playing with wanting to achieve something or hit a particular goal, maybe being consistent here, maybe falling off here and there. But like, I want us to do an episode and talk to anybody in that position where they're kind of just playing around with it rather than taking this thing as seriously as they need to in order to make a few slight adjustments that will make a massive difference. Welcome to another episode of the Reason to Behold podcast with Tolly Talks.
And Arnold Reasons. I think you're talking to me, mate.
Bro,
I was
you
like,
know,
who's been reading my
some
mail, mate?
sometimes we come with the medicine and sometimes we come with the rod, right? Bro, man, I think here's my thing, right? I've been thinking about just different goals, different things that are like major things. So, like one example for me right now is the business that we're building, right?
Mhm.
Mortgages, protection, and that kind of stuff, right? And I think where I've been at mentally is you have to come to a place where you make a decision to stop
Yeah.
playing around, right?
Mm.
Because truth be told, the position that we're in right now financially is one where we're actually doing okay, where we don't even need for the mortgage business to do much more than it's already doing, right? And we'll be
Mm.
fine. But there are big goals that we've set. There are big things that
Yes.
we are trying to achieve. And I think that the thing that's going to get us to go from where we are now to where we're trying to get to is not this relaxed kind of lackadaisical, maybe I'm going to do it, maybe I'm not. Sometimes I'm going to be consistent, sometimes I'm not. That's not going to get us there, right? That will only get you certain results and outcomes, which are probably the things you're not going to be satisfied with. And I know for me, I've not been satisfied with, right?
Mm.
And so rather than falling on my knees and praying and asking God to move these mountains and cause for this miraculous thing in my business to happen, I've turned the whole finger pointing back to myself because I feel like this is where responsibility lies. To make a
Mm.
decision, if you missed our last episode, make sure you go back and listen to that talking about decision making. But to make a decision to stop playing games and to
Mm.
start doing what needs to be done to achieve the things that we say we're trying to go for. So, what are your thoughts on
Mm.
that, bro?
I think that some of this is about growing up. So,
Goodness
where
me.
Paul said, when I was a child, sorry?
I said, goodness me.
Yeah, I think where Paul said, when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child, blah 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 blah. Blah. But then when I became a man, I put away childish things.
Mm,
So when you said about we're not going to play any more games, it's like that's kind of where we're getting to. Is that it's time to grow up. It's time to stop playing around with some of these things and really like go get it, go grab it. Like it's about growing up in the things that we're trying to do, called to do, however you want to put it. Like
mm.
that's really what it is now. It's time to grow up.
Why do you think? Because I guess like it's a very good point you've made, and it brings me to the question: choose not to grow up, or choose to remain like children, or choose to remain immature.
Sorry, I lost you for a second. Say that again for me.
No problem. I said what you said brings for me the question: what do you think it is that causes us to choose to remain immature rather than grow up?
I think sometimes it might be a lack of exposure because as a human you don't just have one maturity, right? So just like
Mm,
you could have massive biceps but a terrible chest. You could have massive
yeah,
quads, no calves.
yeah.
It's a similar thing. I think that sometimes we're underdeveloped in some of the areas that we're talking about. So you might be mature in terms of, okay, I'm good at going to get a job and I'm good at working my job and da 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 da. But what we're talking about right now, we're not talking about jobs.
Mm,
See what I mean? We're talking about building our own businesses, right? We're
mm,
talking about maturing in making money outside of the kind of the regular way of being an employee.
mm.
Yeah. So, bro, I've got 12 years of flexing my employee muscle. Like, bro, I could go right now, get a job, and get paid what? Like,
Yeah.
I'm comfortable in that. I'm grown in that muscle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
I'm not grown in is finding new business, invoicing my customers, building out my packages, doing my I'm not grown in that. I'm a child in
Mm,
that. I'm
mm,
learning that,
mm.
you know? And that's where I think that sometimes we're not mature because we've not been exposed to it. We've not tried to grow. We've not lifted the weights in those areas. So it's not even like shame on you for being immature. It's like we need to recognize the fact that I've got to grow. We need to
Mm.
recognize the fact that I've got to go put some weight on in that area, go do my reps in that area. So sometimes it's that. I think sometimes for some people it is that you're running away from facing maturity.
Yeah.
Like that it's simple. You're running away from it. You've got to go face your books, go face your gym, like go learn and grow.
T, you know what? Yeah, you're really hitting
Mm,
something, bro. Because, like, I don't know if it's because gym health and fitness has been such a big focus point for me in recent times. Maybe it is,
mm,
but I see a lot of the stuff that we're talking about through that lens,
mm,
and how you really have to make decisions. Like, you can't. At one time, we were speaking, you and I, about just like
mm,
numbers and kind of targets and stuff like that. And I remember you said something which was very true, and it's a saying that people have kind of been quoting a lot lately as well. What got us here won't get us there.
mm,
And I think what I love
mm,
about what you said is that it starts first of all with recognizing your immaturity, right? Which
mm,
isn't a comfortable thing. Who really wants to put their hands up and say, yeah, I am a kid in this thing. I
mm,
am weak in this thing. I lack knowledge,
mm,
experience.
mm,
I just don't know what I'm doing, right?
mm, mm,
But that thing that we don't want to do also holds a lot of the power that we need to get where we're trying to go next. Because when you first make that realization that I am a kid, I am weak, I do lack in this area, you are now empowered with the opportunity to find the solutions that are going to help you to become what you're not, right? And I
mm,
think
mm,
pride is the thing that stops us a lot of the time, because it's like, if we think that we are further than we are in the present, if we think that we're more than what we are at the moment, like, you're not looking for anything that is relevant
no,
to where you actually are. Like, if I think I'm like this mastermind when it comes to building a multi-million pound business, then if I really think that's where I am, then really what I would be looking towards is the information that gets me from millions to billions, or from 1 mil
mm,
to 10 mil, or from 10 mil to 100 mil. But if I'm focusing on that and I've not even done 0 to 100K, all of that
mm,
information is irrelevant to me, because it's usually built on the foundation of the things that get you from 0 to 100, right? And then from
mm,
100 to a
mm,
mil. So I think that humility and self-awareness of being able to really sit down and say, where am I in this thing,
mm,
is so powerful, bro. It is like, it has like it's the petrol that has the power to
mm,
skyrocket, which I used, I think, in the
mm.
last title, to
Yeah.
skyrocket you towards where you really want to get to, right? It's the thing that has the
Mm,
power to inflate the dead tires that are not moving, and you can now start actually moving the needle and start
moving.
getting going in the right direction. So
Mm,
very powerful,
mm,
bro.
mm.
Very
Yeah,
powerful.
I think that being really honest in terms of where you're at is where I think some of us go really wrong.
Mm,
And to just be really honest, like I've been going to different events, yeah, and seeing like different panels and different people and different things like that. I had to
mm,
write a bio for something, and I was reading through other people's bios, and I think comparison, they say comparison is a thief of joy, blah blah blah.
mm,
I don't actually fully believe that. I think that sometimes you have to compare yourself to other people to understand where you're really truly at. There came a point, where I had to realize my dream of the NBA was not going to happen because I had to compare myself to other people and say, bros, you're not there. Yeah, you're not strong enough. You're not fast enough. You're not good enough. I had to compare myself and say,
Yeah.
I'm not there. Yeah. And same thing with this. I looked at some other people's bios. I looked at some of the stuff that they had achieved,
Mm.
and I realized I need to achieve so much more. Yeah.
Mm.
I need to be. Yeah. I need to improve my evidence. Basically,
Mm.
is what I'm trying to
Mm.
say. It doesn't
Mm.
mean that I've not achieved anything, bro. I've achieved amazing things by God's grace. Like, it's not to take away from that, but it's to
Yeah.
recognize that to go to that next level, what got you here won't get you there.
Mm.
What
Mm.
I've done so far is not going to get me to that next level.
Mm.
And I need to be okay with that and not allow that to then make me depressed and all that kind of stuff, say I'm worthless. No, it motivates me to say, I got to go after better things.
Mm.
I've got to achieve and do different, have more impact.
Mm.
Because that's really what I'm seeing is, okay, these people have had this impact in this world. I have not had that impact yet. I need to start, something needs to shift. Yeah. And I can either go, oh, woe is me. Like, no, stop it. Like, go make the impact. Go make it happen.
And isn't that the thing that makes the difference? Because where comparison gets people into trouble is when we make the mistake of comparing and then feeling condemned, right?
Yep.
Or comparing and allowing comparison or measuring to lead to covetousness, right? Which is something that needs to be preached on a whole lot more, bro, in this 2024, bro, because that is something in and of itself. But I think that's the error that we can fall into. But I think what you're describing is being, if I was to put other language to it, it would be, first of all, putting yourself in a context where you can see what above average looks like, and then measuring how close or how short you fall in the
100%.
context of that, right? Because again, now on the negative sides of comparison, I think again another place where we go wrong is when we're comparing to the wrong things, we're comparing with the wrong variables, and we're comparing with the wrong context. So many different things that can go wrong with it.
100%.
But I think what's so effective about what you're describing is you've put yourself in an environment where the environment in itself has created a context where those that you're talking about have gone beyond average, and you're using that as an opportunity not to measure yourself and feel condemned, but to see how tall am I standing next to these people, and what do I need to maybe consider making changes in my life in order to stand taller. Very different perspective. It's very proactive. It's very like it leads to positive outcomes. And I think you're right in making that distinction. Go ahead, sorry.
That's the thing. It depends on what you're trying to build. So you know that thing about, if you want to build a skyscraper, you've got to dig a deeper foundation. It's the same thing. Like, if I've achieved all the stuff that I want to achieve, there's no point in me comparing myself to other people because, bro, I've done everything that I want to do. But I know that I still want to grow taller. I still want to build higher. So I need to be comparing myself to other people that have done that and understand, okay, how did they do it? How did they build it? What did that look like? And there's this principle of like, people want what other people have without wanting to do the work that they did to get it. So like, how can I compare myself to someone else who's done different work? Like, have I, when Jesus said to one of the disciples, he said, are you willing to drink the cup of suffering? It's like, are you willing to do the things that I'm going to have to do to get the glory that I'm going to get? And that's often what we're comparing. You said there's so many different variables. Like, bro, we can't compare because we've not done all the things that other person has done. And that's where like comparison in that sense doesn't make sense. But if I need to understand, okay, where do I actually sit in the pecking order? Where do I sit? And it's like, that's humility. It's not thinking of yourself higher than you ought to. I need to understand, where actually am I? There are going to be people who are first. There are going to be people that are last. Where do I sit in the ranking?
And then on top of that, why? Like, what is it that makes the person who sits at number one sit there? Even the person at number two, what's the difference between what their inputs are and their kind of context compared to number one? What is number 9, who's far behind me, and maybe number 7 or 8? Like, what's the difference between me and them? And I feel like these are some of the self-assessing questions that we don't always ask, because it hurts, right? It hurts to get real with and to accept that you're not doing what you should be doing, right? The
100%.
reason why you are number 5,827 is not because your bloodline was cursed or because
Nope.
somebody somehow mistreated you as a result of your race and all of that kind of stuff. All of that stuff may have come into it in different ways, but it's like, really, on a fundamental level, what are the things that you can control which are affecting your positioning and where you're measuring up?
100%.
It's
100%.
easy to
Because,
blame the
bro,
externals.
we need to let go of that. We honestly need to let go of it because, bro, even if it's because you're black,
Mm,
yeah, bro, in this world that we live in right now, you could go to a place where everybody else is black and go succeed.
mm,
Yeah. Let's say, okay, the white man is keeping you down.
mm,
Okay. Go somewhere where the white man's not the one that makes the decisions.
mm.
Like, bro, there's so much that you can do. Even from your own house, you can go sell to a market that's totally different to yours. Yeah. Like, bro, there are no
Oh
excuses.
my gosh.
None.
And even to add to that as well, how about you become so valuable that even though in his heart he wants to keep you down, he knows
You
that it
can't.
is a bad business decision to do so and that he needs you, right? Because you know what? Sometimes, like whether it's race, sex, whatever the thing is, there are times where it is true. There is really a thing that is
Yeah.
causing for us to be at some sort of disadvantage. But I have
Disadvantage. Yeah.
found when you don't allow that to become a limitation, but instead you choose to say, all right, cool, let me double down. Let me look at
Mm,
putting in even more work. Let me do the
mm,
extra efforts to make it
mm.
so undeniable, like to make it like you would have, you're spiting yourself, right?
Yes. Yes.
to not to not recognize the value in the input that I'm bringing. And the great thing about that as well, right, is that sometimes sometimes it leads to the fruit that you're hoping for, but
Mm,
sometimes it doesn't. And
mm.
sometimes they will choose to spite themselves, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they will choose to continue to play that game. And the benefit you have is that whatever work and whatever outcomes that you have produced and the person you've become, you can take to a different context and play the game
100%.
of pay me now or pay me later, right? Which we've spoken about a
Pay
few
me now,
times in
pay me
different
up.
episodes, right? Because somebody
Mm,
out
mm.
there will pay you for that value. Somebody out there will recognize your efforts and reward you accordingly. And I think that's
Mm.
something that we have to just kind of keep rehashing, especially as people that have all of these different things that can sometimes be limiting beliefs based on true things, right?
Mm. It's just really up to us. It's really up to us. And as Christians, we also have the extra side of like, bro, it's God that rewards.
Mm,
It's God that increases. And you see it in so many times in the Bible, whether it's with Joseph or with Daniel and with all of his friends. You know,
mm,
like, bro, they were in environments where they were definitely not celebrated as a people, you
mm,
know, but they still rose to the top.
mm,
Even when you think about Esther and her uncle and what happened. Like, bro, this guy was fully out to kill these people, not just suppress them, to kill them. And bro, they
mm.
still rose to the top. So for me, it's like, as Christians, we need to also remember that we have a different hope. We have a God who,
Yeah.
bro, he can make things happen that we can never even imagine. He can elevate us to places that other people can't get to.
One thing that I want to tag on before we wrap up. So we've been studying around Genesis lately, and we've kind of been close to the story of Joseph,
Mm,
and how he has the dreams, his brothers sell him slavery, he goes through all these different things. And one of the things that occurred to me as we were going through it is how I don't think that we have a good understanding of the concept of time. Like how we measure
mm,
time, I think
mm,
sometimes really messes us up
mm,
because like the distinct point that got me thinking about this was how it was, I think it was 2 years, if I remember correctly, between the time that he interpreted the dreams in the prison to when Pharaoh has these dreams, which then
mm,
eventually lead to him being released from prison and eventually
mm.
being made the man, right? 2 years. To, like, think about where you were 2 years ago. And then to add on to that, he's interpreted these dreams, and we're talking about 7 years of plenty, 7 years of prosperity, then followed by 7 years of
Mm,
lack.
mm.
That's 14 years, bro. 14 years ago, do you know where I was, bro?
Uni? Probably
I
uni.
was at uni, bro. I was
Yeah.
at uni
Wow.
on the struggle bus buying like 18p ketchup at times to try and make that money work, right?
Yeah.
Like, and when you think about just the last
Mm,
14 years of your life and how much has
mm,
happened, plus the 2 years, 16 years, plus whatever the time frame was before he got to that prison and when he actually originally had the dreams, you start to realize that we really don't have a good understanding on time and how time can work, because we're just
mm,
literally just thinking about, yeah, I've got this goal today, I've got this dream today, and I want to see it fulfilled in the next 6 seconds, right? If that at
mm,
most. If it's 7 seconds, it's too late, right? We get
mm,
frustrated when that dream hasn't been fulfilled the way that we saw it in the first 6 months, in the first year. We get frustrated when it feels like I've been going around in circles for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But how about
mm,
14, 16 plus years
mm,
being the time frame between the vision that you see now and it
mm,
coming to fruition? How would that affect like
mm,
our decisions now? How would that affect the way that we see life now? And I think going through that for me has really kind of, it's just been this loop thought in my mind where I'm just thinking to myself, you don't know where you are in the timeline,
mm,
right? You really don't know where you are in the timeline. And I think that's why it's so important that we are as effective as we can possibly be when it comes to time in the present moment.
mm, mm. I think it's so right, and some of the things that need to happen are a little bit out of your control.
Yeah.
Like Joseph didn't know when the dream was going to happen, right? So some of the stuff, and what I feel like is that some of it is out of our control, but so much of it is in our
Oh,
control. So
yes.
much of it. So much of it. Because sometimes we'll say, oh, but the dream had to happen and he had to wait and blah, blah, blah. But okay. But what about all the stuff that was within his control? The fact
Mm,
that he made himself a valuable person wherever he was. He
mm,
was ready for those opportunities. And I honestly believe that we sometimes, and this sounds a bit weird, but we see them as the rule when they might be more like the exception. Like
mm,
Joseph was called to be the second person in the nation. How many of
mm,
us are called to be the second person in the nation? Not that many. Not that many. The level of his success, sometimes we like confuse that we're called to that same thing. We're not necessarily all called to that same thing.
mm,
So you don't need some of those crazy things to happen to you. You just
mm,
need to be doing the right things, ordering your footsteps, because it says that he will make whatever you do successful. It
mm,
says that it's God that gives you the power to get wealth. So you don't need to be the second in the nation to be successful or have wealth.
mm,
But sometimes we apply some of those extraordinary things to us and say, oh, well, sometimes you just have to wait years before. Sometimes it's because you've not done the work for years, and that's why it's
mm,
taking so long.
mm,
Like if you're doing the work, God will make it prosperous. Like,
mm.
you know? It's such an interesting balance. And someone said to me, like, be impatient with your inputs, but patient waiting for the results.
Mm, mm, mm.
And for me, that's what this is about. Like, do the things that you can do like an absolute madman. Like,
Come
go
on.
do it, go get
Yeah.
after it. But then be patient, waiting for the results to come. If it comes quick, great. If it comes slow,
Yeah.
okay, keep doing the work.
Yeah, man.
Hmm. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode. I don't even remember where we started, but make the adjustments, grow up, be
Yeah.
patient. That's what it was, self-control and patience. Be patient, grow in your self-control, and start doing the things that you know you need to do to be successful. And if you
Mm,
don't know what you need to do to be successful, go and find out what that thing is. Go and find out how people who are ahead of you or where you want to be are being successful. And if you're going to compare yourself, make sure you understand what you're doing, because some comparison is so pointless. Like
mm,
you're comparing things that don't even matter. But if it's just in terms of, okay, how far along am I? Where am I looking to go? Like,
mm.
cool. So use comparison in a way that actually benefits you. We'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.